Madam President Lagarde, the Managing Director of the IMF, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to have Madam Lagarde and the IMF entourage with us today. The last time we were here in 2012, we were celebrating our Deepavali and our Muharram. So this time around, we are very happy that you are able to come during our Hari Raya celebrations. So I still recall, Madam Lagarde, when you were here the last time, you had said that you keep on coming back to Asia because of the increasing role of Asia plays in the global economy. And I believe this sentiment holds true today, and she will continue to come back to Malaysia, I hope, as frank and candid exchanges between the government authorities, especially by Negara and IMF, has been very useful and have been very mutually beneficial. Well, before I pass the floor to Madam Lagarde, I would like to acknowledge the positive changes at the IMF under the remarkable reforms under Madam Lagarde's stewardship. Under her leadership, significant efforts were made to increase the representation of emerging economies at the IMF in recognition of their growing importance to the global economy. The IMF has also been very appreciative of the views and approaches of emerging economies in addressing policy challenges. The IMF has also broadened the areas of work to include issues such as governance, corruption, inequality, climate change, and the financial linkages to the broader economy. I should highlight that Madam Lagarde has been diligently advocating for women's empowerment and leadership in the global arena. Being the first woman to hold the post of Finance and Economic Minister of France, and also the first woman to hold the IMF Managing Director position, we all can agree that Madam Lagarde has set a very high bar for all women to emulate, and we thank her for that. Over to you, Madam.
Well, thank you so much, Madam Governor. It's a pleasure to be back in Malaysia. Many things have changed since I last visited the country, but one thing is still the same. It's a woman who is the governor of the Central Bank of Malaysia. So congratulations to you, and congratulations for the extraordinary work that you're leading in this institution. We're very proud to celebrate your achievements, and certainly from a monetary policy point of view, we believe that you have done exactly what was expected and required in terms of monetary stability for the country. With that, I'm also delighted to have visits later this afternoon with the Finance Minister, and certainly indeed with Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir, with whom I will be happy to discuss the most recent developments in Malaysia as well as around the globe. It's a pleasure to be coming here 1 year and a few months after his election, and to see that from the initial program that he had launched, there are already some achievements, and I hope very much more to come in terms of fight against corruption. As you rightly said, this is also one of the goals that we have at the International Monetary Fund, to be much more intrusive and much more specific about what needs to be improved in terms of governance and in order to eradicate corruption. So I'm only delighted that the Prime Minister has made that fight against corruption and improvement of governance one of its leading proposals. We will certainly have a chance to discuss the just recent conclusion of the ASEAN summit and the role that ASEAN plays in the region and beyond, and the more assertive approach that the ASEAN countries seem to be taking going forward. And I will share with him our views about the global economy and where we see the perspective going forward. But I have to say that I have been most impressed by the recent development of the Malaysian economy. And as I said earlier on today when I visited Malaya University, where I gave a speech, I'm hoping that the Malaysia economy will be as successful and as tasty and rich as laksa, which was the theme of my remarks this morning, with additional ingredients including governance and fight against corruption, higher and better education, for all the Malaysian young and not so young people as well, and the improvement of the role of women, which I'm pleased to see is also one of the goals that Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir is pursuing going forward. So with that, I think we under your leadership, Madam Governor, we can maybe take a few questions.
Yep.
Madam Lagarde, Patrick Lee from the AFP. It is Trump and Xi Jinping due to meet at the upcoming G20. Do you have any comment on that?
You know, I will soon be heading towards Osaka, Japan, to participate in the G20 myself, representing the IMF. I'm not privy to the particular agenda of either President Xi or President Trump, but what I can tell you is that any positive move towards resolving the current trade tensions that we are seeing between the United States and China, among others, would be certainly welcome from the perspective of the global economy. We are concerned that trade tensions could actually have a significant impact on global growth. The work that we have done at the IMF indicates that we could fear a reduction of 0.5% of global growth in 2020 as a result of the 25% tariff increase on all the trade that there is between the United States and China. And given the slower growth that we have observed this year, we certainly would hope that growth will not be reduced as a result of trade tensions.
Madam Lagarde, this afternoon you'll be going to meet the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. Would you be able to share with us what sort of views of the Malaysian economy and global growth would you be sharing with the two countries?
Well, I will certainly express the views of the IMF about fiscal and monetary policies, because this is what we normally do. And for those of you who are interested, we have published the Article 4, which is the review of the Malaysian economy, with, of course, the consent of the Malaysian authorities. And we are pleased to see that the 2019 budget returns to fiscal discipline in order to make sure that the country is rebuilding its buffers just in case there is, rainy days to come. I will also certainly exchange views and compare notes with Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir concerning his anti-corruption and governance agenda, because it's an area where the work that we did to review the Malaysian economy has made some recommendations, and where we will acknowledge the progress already made and hope in particular that the governance principles be really enshrined and embedded in the legal system of Malaysia, because that is the best way to make sure that it will survive the passing of time and the change of authorities over the course of the many decades to come. It's a legacy that is critically important, and I'm sure that Dr. Mahathir would be pleased to see his legacy actually embedded in the legal system.
And your outlook for the rest of the year for us?
Well, as you know, we believe that there is a slight slowdown, and I think our forecast is 4.5%, which is a little bit lower than the forecast of the authorities. It's not totally unusual. It's often the case that we're a little bit lower, but this is clearly attributable to trade tensions, to downside risks that we have on the horizon, and Malaysia being part of the supply chain of many of the products that are covered by the tariff increase, it's only normal that this is happening.
Speaking about, Jason here from UK. Speaking about trade tensions, what's IMF's view when it comes to the trade issue of trade diversion? Economists is part of the benefit tension and so on.
Well, there are studies that we have conducted, and you will see in our publications how we are try to really go under the skin of those trade flows and supply chains as well. Most recently, we've published on that topic. I think what's important in that respect is to also take into account the medium and the longer term, to see really what is the certainty and the likelihood of those trade diversions to actually anchor into the development of countries. Because what can be a sort of a short-term fix, which seems like a great opportunity for some countries, will not necessarily develop into a longer-term development which will result in capital expenditure, foreign direct investment that would contribute to the real development of the economies. So
nobody wins in a trade war.
Nobody wins in a trade war, that's for sure. That is for sure. I think you've already taken the floor, so maybe we need to give the floor to others. Who else has a question? Can you say who you are?
So yesterday, our Prime Minister mentioned during the ASEAN summit that SB could boost trade within the ASEAN grouping.
You should have said yes to the microphone because I couldn't hear you well.
Hello, hi, Fida Fazil from Astro AWANI. So yesterday during the ASEAN summit, our Prime Minister mentioned something about how to boost the trade within the ASEAN grouping. Maybe from the IMF perspective, maybe you can give some comments on that.
We, in most regions of the world, we, the IMF, support better integration. This is certainly the case, to give you another example, outside the region, on purpose. If you look at the Maghreb countries, if you look at sub-Saharan countries, there are regional integration arrangements that are supportive of better trade, and more joint project, including on infrastructure, to actually be more conducive to improved trade. So to the extent that this region, however diverse and however scattered it is geographically, can improve its intra-regional relationships, I think it's inner strength that you simply cannot ignore. So we would be very supportive and encouraging, yes. So.
Joseph from Reuters. You mentioned about the trade tensions between the US and China, but now we're also facing potential conflict between the US and Iran. What is IMF's position on that? How do you feel that possible conflict?
We don't take a political view. But what we observe and have been observing is that trade tension, trade wars are beneficial to none, okay? But war are certainly even less beneficial to any. And you don't associate trade war or trade with increased well-being for people, with additional growth, with more inclusive growth, and with predictability and certainty, without which investors generally do not invest, traders do not trade, and consumers do not consume. Okay?
Okay.
You two already have asked questions, so there's no more question. We can go and celebrate
Right.
and have a wonderful lunch.
Thank you everyone for coming over.
What do we do?
Do you want to take photos of it?
Oh, okay, of us.